Right, hello everybody. Yeah, I just thought I'd make one more video before I have to plod on to work. Working on site today. So, yeah. I just thought I'd make a little, I don't know, video I know about the history of war. Not in any particular miraculous sort of ceremonial sense, if you know what I mean, because I don't believe war's about that. But what I would say is that I know a lot about the war. I know most about historically is the Vietnam War. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So basically, during the Vietnam War, there was a divide between the North and the South. The Communist North, as you'd call it, the Communist North. I mean, it's not really been practiced, but you know what I mean. It's not communism as in communist sense, as in Karl Marx would state it. It's communist as in the communist sense that it's a communist country, if you know what I mean. It's far left. It's far to the left. Now, basically, that was the North, and then basically in the South there were also the Vietnamese there. They're the Vietnamese in the north and the Vietnamese in the south, and basically what happened was the United States saw communism as in Russia as a threat to the United States of America and to free trade and capitalism, and effectively invaded Vietnam from the south. And then basically what happened was in the north there was a man named Ho Chi Minh. His name was Ho Chi Minh, and I'll get onto that a bit later. Why the city in the south, the capital city, is now called Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, because the Americans didn't win this war. Basically, what happened was there's a man called Ho Chi Minh who was exiled from who went into exile from Vietnam, and then he ended up becoming actually a funny enough, he actually ended up becoming a pastry chef in France, which is one of mild occupations. And then what happened was he went to Russia. I learnt about communism from Russia, from the Soviet Union, as it would be there. He learnt about communism in Russia, and then effectively sneaked back into Vietnam. He sneaked all the way back into Vietnam, and then basically, when the United States had invaded in the south. And then effectively what he did was start an uprising of he started a small uprising of people in the mountains, who you would call jungle fighters, or not jungle fighters, but you know what I mean. It was guerrilla warfare strategy or tactics, a bit like say the Irish Republican Army used in the Irish Republican War of Independence. It's a civil uprising movement where effectively because they're civilians of that particular country, they know the terrain a lot better than their opponent. They know the terrain. They tend to have. It is more down to the fact that they know the terrain, and they frequently ambush their targets. Now, what would happen is that the South Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese then went to war. And basically there was this north-south divide, pretty much right down the middle, with different cities, which were occupied by the North or the South Vietnamese. and then effectively what happened was the South, the Americans, used a particular bomb called napalm. Now, it's not a very nice bomb. If you've ever read the Anarchist Cookbook, you'll know how to make it, because it's a very, very easy bomb to make. It's made out of gasoline, petrol, and polystyrene, or which is a form of plastic. Now, you can imagine when that explodes with the gunpowder when it hits the ground, how that sticks to your skin. And it's actually the Americans, the United States of America, actually committed rather a lot of war crimes in this war that I'm not going to go into too much detail. They bombed places like hospitals, schools, things like that with napalm. But what they got a bit wrong is that they started bombing the jungle, where there was effectively nobody there. There was nobody there to bomb. They bombed the jungle where there was nobody there to bomb. They might have caught someone out, but they didn't really. What they weren't really. They were just bombing into nowhere, if you know what I mean. So then, effectively, I'll just carry on walking down here. So then, effectively, what happened was Ho Chi Minh, from the north, from the far northern city. I can't remember exactly where it was called again. I believe it's near Halong. So near Halong Bay, if you've ever been to that very nice place in the world. So effectively, what happened was the Ho Chi Minh built they built a track down the west-hand side of Vietnam. They built a track that carried lorries, and women drove these lorries. They're also part of the struggle for the communist North, and what they did was they drove their AK-47s that were Russian made down to the border where the war was happening, and ambushed their target so they couldn't get any closer, and proceeded south as this track got longer and longer and longer and longer and longer down the eastern side. Now, the Americans kept bombing this track, but the communist North kept on rebuilding it. So then effectively what happened was the Americans had a particular assault rifle called, I believe it was the M140 assault rifle, and it didn't work very well. It didn't work very well at all, because it was effectively got clogged up with mud, things like that, and it was just a very lousy weapon to use. It wasn't very reliable. Whereas the Vietnamese AK-47, I mean, that is Kalashnikov assault rifle. It works in any terrain. It works in any form of dust anywhere, and it's still used today in a lot of wars. The AK-47 has killed more people than nuclear weapons ever have in history. They've killed the AK-47 has killed far more people. So then what happened was as the communists proceeded south, they then invaded a city called Saigon, which they took as the capital, and is now called Ho Chi Minh City, which is the capital of the which is not the capital of the United States of America, of course it's not. It's the capital of Vietnam. So yeah, that's effectively what happened on a brief overview of the War of Vietnam. That's a little bit about war. I don't think it should be glorified in any sense whatsoever. I've got both my granddads were in the RAF, things like that. I had my great uncle was in the SAS. Without going into too much detail about his life story there. So I don't think it should be a glorified thing or something to be celebrated. That is that's just my opinion. So basically, wrapping this up now, I think I'm coming to a close. Yeah, I have to come to a close now. I might have a little bit longer. So yeah, the idea is that yeah, let me just think. Is there anything else that I need to cover there? Basically what happened was the Americans, right at the end of the war, bought a load of since the South Vietnamese, they just escaped the country when they just fled the country when the United States of America, the US Army basically fled the country when the Communist North and Ho Chi Minh's guerrilla warfare army, not an army, civil uprising, invaded Saigon. The US Army just fled, and basically what happened was the bit that they got completely wrong at the end was that the US government sent the US government sent the South Vietnamese people who were fighting alongside them. They sent the South Vietnamese people a bunch of equipment, vehicles, and things like that the South Vietnamese had no idea how to use and no training in. So that eventually lost them the war. It was a completely, it was a war that was emotionally attached to a lot of people still now, and if they don't want to talk about it, people do kind of talk about the Vietnam War quite a lot. But I suppose, yeah, that's about it. About wraps it up. On a brief summary. Now, I would also mention that who was the president at the time? Nick, was it? No, not Nick. What's his name? You know the one. What's his name? Oh, I can't remember all the presidents' names. He was the Republican anyway. The Republican president at the time, after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, all that stuff. The Republican president at the time basically filed a load of tapes which were recorded. There were a load of recordings of that bastard basically telling them to bomb hospitals and all kinds of stuff, basically commit war crimes against the Vietnamese people with that Republican president at the time. And that's why you do not want a Republican president in the United States of America, because they commit war crimes. Okie dokie. Alright, thank you very much. Cheers, goodbye.